guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Inspired, Stay Inspired. I'm Alicia and I am so glad to be here with you guys and to be making another episode. And this week's episode, as always, is going to be very interesting, very powerfully inspiring for you. So I'm really pleased you're here, and as always, you are part of my journey. So first and foremost, how are you doing? Hope you're feeling good. Hope you're feeling well. If you're new, it's lovely to have you subscribe to the series and to get all the episodes that I've done so far, and to even be notified of all the new episodes that are coming your way. And those of you who've been part of my journey, thank you for being with me. Thank you for staying the course. It's not been easy, I know, because sometimes I have tended to diverge slightly, but you know what? I'm learning and I'm beginning to get more and more kind of to the point to make life easier as part of your listening journey. But yeah, it's great to have your wonderful support, and I always appreciate you being here with me. And let's see what we can do as part of this episode. And as you know, I'll be sharing one of my channeled works. I've been going through a whole series of them. The details are in the description for you, and I'll mention that again at the end. For this particular episode, I've got a new passage for you, which I'm going to go through. This particular channeled passage says, "There are times in my life when I am simply exhausted by coping with all that is cropping up. At times like this, let me summon my inner power, so I may cope graciously with all that I need to deal with." Okay, now what I feel about this passage is the most prominent aspect to it, or the most strongest thing I feel it is trying to get across on a soulful level, is this aspect of coping. Now, it's by coincidence that we are in a very difficult time that this passage is talking about coping. And what I mean by coincidental is that right now, I would say almost 100% of us out there are trying to cope with what's going on around us or what's going on in our lives. And these coping mechanisms are the strength of what it's going to take to see you through. What is it going to take for you to overcome the challenges that are confronting you? What is it going to take for you to ride this storm of adversity that's not just maybe going on in your life, but it's going on in the lives of those around you? And what is it going to take for you to not just weather the storm, to not just cope with the storm, but for you to come out of the other side of the storm intact and able to still focus on what lies ahead, and able to still focus on what you need to achieve in your life on a physical and on a kind of soulful level and universal level? You know, what is it going to take? It's going to take a lot of empowerment, and the type of empowerment you're going to need cannot be superficial. Do you know what I mean? And it cannot necessarily come from the external. The type of empowerment you're going to need is going to be the soulful empowerment and strength that it's going to take to not just support yourself but others as they undertake this very trying time. And you are a part of undertaking the very trying times that are also going on in your life and those around you. You know, you are likely going to have to be at this particular moment in time what we call a support system. Maybe you're going to have to be a support system for your loved ones, for your family, for your siblings, for those you love and care for. Maybe you are going to be the support system that others will be relying on to find out if they can not just, get your support, but you can be supportive to them, and you will not just be able to cope, but you may be in a position where you're going to have to help them cope as well. This is kind of like an unusual time, and all of this is going to come into play. And what I always say, I know I say it all the time, what I love about this passage, but what I do love about this passage is this element of coping, how to cope, how to get through this, how to be strong, how to stay empowered, and how to be enduring in your strength and empowerment. So it's not just fleeting and something that you find strength, overnight, but then it's gone a week down the road, a month down the road. How do you maintain a strong sense of empowerment and the strength of having a kind of internal coping mechanism that not everyone can tap into, that not everyone can have, and not everyone can draw on? But you can, and you know why you can? Because in my teachings, I'm giving you the foundations of having a very strong and soulful connection, not just on a physical level, but on a soulful level, on a universal level, and the partnership that on a universal, soulful and inner partnership, you are finding and drawing on something so much stronger than that which is going on around you. Now, there is definitely a lot going on around us, and how are you going to cope with it all is almost like walking a very fine line. But on a soulful level, you will be able to do this, you will be able to achieve this, you will be able to endure, you will be able to overcome, and you will be able to kind of make headway in whatever it is you're choosing to do, whatever it is you're trying to support others with, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And you know what I find with coping, you're not just necessarily coping on one level, it's having to cope on different levels. And, one of the most powerful mechanisms, if you've been following my series, is this soulful, powerful connection that we all have, that we can all draw on, and that, it's actually there for us to make use of. I know a lot of you may say, you know what, so much is going on in my life right now. I'm having to cope with this. Things like losing your job, losing people, these are huge things that we are having to cope with right now. And they may be experiences in your life that you have never experienced before. And if you can cope with everything, then you can also cope with the joy of what lies ahead of you. You can also cope with the kind of the progression you can look forward to making, and you can also cope with the goals you can set. And so what is very important is that solidarity and strength. Where do you find it? How do you incorporate it into your life? How do you use it as a foundation for strength so that you can rely on it to cope, to see you through, to allow you to move forward positively in a powerful way, in a strengthened way. And as I said earlier, remember, for many of us, we're not just having to cope within ourselves, but we're having to cope either on behalf of others or with others, or We have to cope to become dependent upon those who are depending on us or trying to cope in a way that leans on us. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you are weighed down by the burdens of others. That's one of my channel passages. You're sometimes weighed down by the burdens of others, and you have to be careful that, you know, you don't collapse. You know, not only are you trying to carry the burden of what you're going through and what you're experiencing and coping with that, but the burdens of others that can also kind of fall on you. And another thing you want to, you know, keep an eye on is don't take on too many additional stresses and strains of others. By all means, you have to do what you can do within your means to help, to cope, to support others and to support yourself. But try not to kind of come to the rescue of everyone so that you become totally overburdened and overwhelmed with what you're trying to cope with, what they're trying to cope with. You're going to give them your support, your love, your absolute best. And you have to kind of do that internally for yourself on a soulful level. But at the same time, try not to kind of be everybody's kind of anchor so that you find yourself being anchored down or weighted down too heavily. You want to give yourself enough space, enough room, and enough kind of free-spirited nature of yourself to actually allow yourself to rise as well. So, you know, the passage says that there are times when I'm simply exhausted, and this is something that will happen to us. We will become exhausted. We will become overwhelmed by the pressure being put on us by others or internally on ourselves. So you've got to watch out for that, that there is this element of becoming completely exhausted. And, you know, this empowerment to cope is going to be very, very important. And I'm going to kind of cover some steps. We've done this in the other episodes, but just kind of be a little refresher and to remind you. And it says coping with all that is cropping up. You know, things are cropping up left, right and centre. You know, what you coped with yesterday may be something that today was like history, you now having to cope with something else. So all these things cropping up in your life, finding the strength to cope with them, you know. And it's at like times like this, it's very unusual that this passage should relate so closely to what we are all going through. But it's at times like this that you must, as the passage says, summon your inner power. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about how to do that, but you must summon it to cope graciously with all that you need to deal with. And I love that, because we can cope in many different ways, but the passage says try to cope graciously. Do you know what I mean? And coping graciously, I mean, you know, easier said than done, hey? But coping graciously means that you don't fall to bits to the best of your ability. You don't let others suffer as a result of your coping mechanisms. You know, if your coping mechanisms are to become angry and to alienate others, then that's not coping graciously. What we're talking about on a soulful level is allowing you to cope graciously with all that is going on, but like in a positive way. And I know it's easier said than done when all is going on around you and you're thinking, you know, I can't really be a kind of a saint or something like that in this type of situation. But listen, you're only human and you can only do your best. And the best way I know, and the best kind of coping mechanism I have and I use is all that comes through my writings. And one of the key things that my writing talks about is a partnership, an inner partnership that you are entitled to be a part of. And that is a universal partnership that connects you universally to all that exists out there, or whatever your belief systems are, whether you have, or you sort of think about infinite intelligence or God, or you think about, an infinite spirit, or just universal energy, whatever your belief systems are, the universal aspects of all those connections are part of what we call a universal partnership. And then within you, on a soulful level, you have your inner partnership, okay? And then on a physical level, we have a physical partnership. Now, when the soul is what brings all three together, and as I've mentioned before, if you don't understand this, go back and watch a few previous episodes. I talk about the inner you, which is in my writings and my books and stuff. But your inner you becomes the cornerstone of sort of supporting the soul, the universal connection, and the external and your physical connection. And, working in what I call the soul's partnership of all three. And having that partnership really does empower you and give you really great grounding for, becoming an individual that is journeying along in your physical life, but with the support of the universal and soulful elements that are also a part of your life. And combining all three allows you to come from a very empowering place. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is I've actually done, and I've done an audio that will be linking in with the new version that I'm doing, the simplified version of my book, and I'm editing it now. And the reason I got really excited about it is I talk you through the whole process of, sort of having a, as I call, what I call soul engagement. It's all in the book, but, as we're talking about it, I might as well share it. This process of soul engagement and this process of what I call mind engagement. And it talks you through the whole process. So trust me, when that's available, when I finished editing it, I will make that available in the description for you. But, for now, you can just essentially engage your soul by being open and willing to listen, learn, and communicate with your inner soul. And you just find a peaceful and quiet place to undertake that state of being. I do explain quite a bit of it in the sort of mini Soulful Pathway series books that I've done. But for now, actually one of my previous episodes, I went into it in quite detail. So check that episode. You'll probably find it's about 37 or 38, one of those episodes. I talk in quite detail about that. But you just start to engage your soul and you start to share or unburden the things that are going on that you're trying to cope with. And one of the key things to my writings, and one of the, I've spoken about it before, and I mentioned it before about, the soul's language. This is very integral to my writings, and it speaks of, understanding the soul's language of the soul, as I call it, and being able to tap into that. And these techniques are going to show you how to do that. But for now, on a kind of a very basic level before my audio's out, and then, you know, I will help you with all that, I promise. But before that's out, you know, you essentially connect on a soulful level, okay, and you engage the soul by sharing those burdens, and then you begin to listen intuitively to the answers you're receiving, the guidance you're receiving, the support you are receiving, and it will come through. Now, what's important to what I teach you as part of your coping mechanism is once you intuitively receive that information, it's very important, and this is where the mind engagement part comes, that you share that knowledge and wisdom, that soulful knowledge and wisdom, with your mind. Now, why is it important to share that knowledge and wisdom with your mind? Because your mind is what connects you to the external, and many of the things you're trying to cope with are external things. You're finding internal answers, and you're finding internal places to draw on the wisdom and strength that you need on a soulful level. That's why you're going to be engaging your soul. But what I feel is really important also is to apply that knowledge and wisdom to the physical. And that way, or the only way I know of, is to make sure you incorporate your mind in directing it, in guiding it, and sharing what you feel you now know is something you need to do, is something you need to act on. And you tell your mind, like, you know, it's like separate yourself and tell your mind what you feel you need to do, what you know needs to be done so that you can cope. And you share that knowledge with the mind as well. So you're receiving internally, universally and soulfully the answers, the direction, the guidance you need that will tell you how to cope. And then once you feel that you have an understanding of the mechanisms that have been shared with you to cope, you then say to the mind, I need this to take place, I need this to happen. This is where you can basically use things like the law of attraction to attract the change, to attract the answers or the actions that you now need to make in the physical, and translate what has been gifted to you, internally on a soulful level, and then you translate that to the mind to enact for you in the physical level, and, you know, to ensure that your knowledge, your wisdom is going to carry over into the physical realm so that you can cope with all that is physically going on. And if you draw your strength from within on a soulful level, and remember, one of the things I teach you is, you know, the connection that you have universally through your soul is a very powerful, powerful connection. So whatever your belief systems are, you can incorporate those on a soulful level, and then, you know, share them with your inner you, okay, which is your higher self. And then allow your higher self to say to the mind, this is what I know, this is what I understand, this is what I feel I need to do in order to cope with what is going on externally, in order to support those around me, you know, to support those who are relying on me, who depend on me, who I need to help on my end of the scale. And once you've got that beautiful connection going between you, then you start making shifts, you start feeling more empowered, you start believing more in yourself and what you're doing. You're not acting blindly now by relying solely on your mind to give you the answers and tell you what to do and things like that. Everything you're doing comes from a soulful place of strength. So, you know, you are using that as your power base, your springboard, your strength to cope with what is going on externally, to cope with what you're having to deal with. You know, even if you feel it's overwhelming you, even if you feel it's taking over, even if you feel you don't have even the power to do what you need to do to cope, that strength, that soulful strength within you is something that can be relied on, that you can go time and time again to go back to the soul engagement processes that I've spoken about. I think it's episode 37 or 38, and I will be leaving the video, sorry, the audio. I haven't made the video yet. I will be leaving the audio available for you to kind of go through the full process. You'll need about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to go through from start to finish, and to also maybe an extra 10 minutes to translate what knowledge and wisdom you gain from your soul engagement, and then translate that into your mind engagement that will allow things in the physical to construct and to support what your intentions are, what your goals are, what your desires are, what you are intending to achieve, how you're intending to progress with it, and how you're intending to fulfill your objectives. Okay, so probably let me see, I'm overshotting my time. I couldn't see it very clearly there, but yes. So there we are. I hope you have enjoyed this particular episode about coping with all that's going on around you, how you can cope and support others, how your coping mechanisms can go on to help others cope as well. Now, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and for those of you who are a part of this amazing journey with me, thank you for being here as always. Thank you for lending your support. If you really love what I do and you wish to become a patron, check out the patron details below. It will be a joy as always to have you along as a patron as well. And what can I say? Don't forget to stick a thumbs up, share, like, subscribe. If you feel anyone else in your life needs to know this knowledge and information, make sure you share the video with them, and hopefully they'll become part of the family like you became today, or like you've always been so far. So I can't wait to not only just share the next up and coming episodes with you, but I can't wait to obviously give more, share more as part of this particular journey that I'm taking alongside you as well. So for now, I'm going to say love and light, love and leave you. Take care of yourselves and your families, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.